What is going on, everybody? Welcome into a very special Celtics Talk Weekly. Should we call it special? An unfortunate Celtics Talk Weekly show. I am your host, Rob Haytayan. Joined with me is my co-host, Seamus Zarlingo, alongside my co-host and writer for Celtics Talk Weekly, Andrew Quinn. Guys, yeah, this is some breaking news here. Not breaking really anymore, however. Game 4 at Madison Square Garden, Jayson Tatum, obviously, we know, went down with an apparent Achilles injury. Well, yesterday it was confirmed by the Boston Celtics that Jayson Tatum underwent a successful surgery to repair a ruptured right Achilles tendon. No time table is currently available for his return. Obviously, that's expected, guys. This podcast, this show, whatever you really want to call it, is quite frankly, maybe the most important and interesting one that we've ever had to record. Once the Boston Celtics just 3 months ago, really looking like a dynasty in the making, has now an uncertain future with the injury of Jayson Tatum. There's so many things I want to talk about in this episode. The implications for the Celtics, the implications for Jayson Tatum. Really, guys, my first question I kind of have for me, for you guys, is you look at a situation like this for Jayson Tatum, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is, what is a Jayson Tatum career going to look like post-surgery? Obviously, no, but how realistic is it here? And this is kind of the question I think that is the biggest question right now with not just the franchise, but with the career trajectory of Jayson Tatum. This is a guy that's 27. He's in his prime. And you go down with an injury like this, what implications does this have on Tatum's career? What is it going to look like? Like, what are you guys expecting from this? Because something to this magnitude is not light.
This is a devastating, catastrophic, dark moment in Celtics franchise history. Not only Celtics franchise history, but a dark moment in Jayson Tatum's career history. Up to this point, Jayson Tatum, since entering the league in 2017, since the 2017-18 NBA season, Jayson Tatum has logged a total of 24,190 minutes, which leads the entire NBA ahead of guys like Nikola Jokic, James Harden, Tobias Harris, DeMar DeRozan, Pascal Siakam, and then our very own Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. Tatum has been utilized more than any other player in the NBA over the span of the last decade and over the last half decade and then some. This moment right now for the Celtics and Jayson Tatum is just, we talk about rock bottom, right, in January, and we go, "Oh, don't talk about it. It could get worse."
It
This
could get
feels
a lot
like
worse.
the worst, right? This feels like the worst of what rock bottom was for the Celtics this season. Game 4, at the end of Game 4, was easily just the darkest point in the Celtics history this decade, if not this century already. It's an injury that comes to Jayson Tatum at such a crucial moment in his career. I was looking last night at some of the game logs of LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. I'm going, where were their age 27 seasons, right? Because Tatum now, he's going to miss his entire age 27 season, which is just a massive, massive blow right in the midst of his prime. Jayson Tatum turned 27 a mere 2 months ago in March. But you look at Curry, his 20 age 27 season was 2015-16, his historic unanimous MVP run. Kevin Durant, his age 27 season was also 2015-16, in which we all know the Thunder almost took down the Golden State Warriors after owning a 3-1 lead in the conference finals. That 73-9 Golden State Warrior team. LeBron James, his age 27 season was 2011, 2012. His first title came in his age 27 season. So the point is here, Jayson Tatum, he is missing just smack dab right in the middle a year within his prime, his age 27 season. We've been ramping up to this moment ever since Jayson Tatum was 19. We're thinking, oh, he's only 19, he's only 19. The joke of that was, well, Jayson Tatum, when he's 27, he's going to look a lot different. He's going to be peaking when he's at his prime. He's still a long way away from his prime. That was the joke when he was 19. Well, now that he's 27, he's going to be rehabbing an Achilles injury instead of going out there and dominating on the floor. And it's not only a blow for himself, but it's a blow for the Celtics franchise, because this is somebody who's been on the court for pretty well 95% of the games over the last half decade and then some. So what this is 8th season in the NBA, I want to say. Jayson Tatum's 8th year. The last 8 years, Jayson Tatum's been healthy. He's been one of the most healthy superstars in the NBA. And now all of a sudden he's going to miss an entire season. And it's going to be a shell shock type of event for the Celtics next year, not having Jayson Tatum and having to maneuver without him, because all of a sudden Pandora's box opens up to the possibilities of what could potentially happen with this Celtics roster now that Jayson Tatum is gone. I mean, with Jayson Tatum still in the lineup, you think, well, maybe the Celtics have a chance to compete next year. Now, all of a sudden, the Celtics, they go into a mode where instead of paying that high luxury tax bill next year, the ownership is due to pay. That becomes increasingly less likely, knowing Jayson Tatum is not going to be in the lineup and you're not going to have your best player next year to compete with the rest. And so, just initial thoughts on this injury. It was obviously terrible when it happened. It was very obvious it was the Achilles at first. I mean, we spent a whole day yesterday speculating, oh, maybe it could be calf strain, maybe it could be ankle, who knows? And it was, we were all sitting there for a moment thinking, oh, maybe it could be a funny notification. Oh, Tatum probable calf strain, game 5, something like that. But obviously that didn't happen, and he ruptures his Achilles, and it was just a terrible moment at MSG after he had such an incredible game. I mean, we could talk about that in its own right, but 42 points in MSG in a must-win game, the Celtics absolutely had to win, and then goes down with the Achilles tendon tear, and that's just one of those just reflection moments in NBA history. Last year, the Celtics win the title. They're riding high. The entire fan base is riding high, and then a year later, we have just one of the worst situations you could come up with to end this iteration of the Boston Celtics, because at this point in time, I do believe the era in which we're in. I don't know how many more games we have left in this Knicks series or this playoff run, but once it's over, I don't see the team necessarily coming back the same. And that's obviously due to Jayson Tatum not coming back next year. But then beyond that, what is Jayson Tatum going to look like in 26 and 27? Is he going to ever come back and be the same dominant, athletic, explosive force that he was for the Celtics this season? And is he going to return back to that MVP candidate status? It's very hard to tell at this point in time, but I mean, October of 2026. It's unbelievable looking out at that date, October 2026. It seems so far away, but that's basically the next time we'll see Jayson Tatum play basketball, unless he makes a Cam Akers type of recovery next season and comes back somehow. But I just don't see that happening with how late in the season this injury came to Jayson Tatum. And up to this point, it's now just about rehabbing JT, getting him back to where he was before the injury, which was that 42 point performance at Madison Square Garden. And then outside of that, it's just, where do the Celtics go? Do they compete? Do they take a step? I mean, they're going to take a step back. That's inevitable. But how many steps back do the Celtics take in this instance? And where do they go afterwards? I mean, the questions surrounding this injury are just very, very abundant. And the fact that it happened, I mean, it's just, we talked about rock bottom. This is why we don't like to talk about rock bottom. It can always get worse. And even now, I was talking last night, I'm going, just imagine if Jaylen Brown came out in game 5 and just had the same injuries. Like that is worse. Like that is worse. That would be worse than rock bottom. But regardless, this is just one of the worst case scenarios for any team in the NBA, is losing your superstar for an entire year during his prime, and to an injury that is historically very tough to come back from. Just extremely tough to come back from.
Yeah, first and foremost, I just feel bad for the guy, man. We know how much he loves basketball. I mean, he has given the Celtics nation everything, and he has not missed a lot of games during his career, and he puts it all out there on the floor. So I just feel bad for the guy, and I hope he can manage it well and find a way to come back stronger because of it. But from a player, like from an implication on his own, performance and what he's going to be able to do after the surgery, I mean, who knows, right? We don't really know. It's really a testament to maybe, the Celtics staff and how they can help him, rehabilitate him, and get him back to full strength. And I know Tatum's going to give, his heart and soul into recovery, and he's going to make sure that he checks off all the boxes to make sure that he does it the right way. But we're in a good spot right now with technology, and he's at a younger age, right? So you can look at it two ways. You can look at it, yeah, he's at a young age and he's right in his prime, so this hurts him, and maybe it's going to really impact him from really reaching his prime and what he's capable of. But then you can also look at it like, we have good technology, right? He's young. So maybe this recovery is quick. Maybe he can really get through it and find a way to come out better on the other side. It's concerning, obviously, though, because he is at such a high level right now, and taking those couple breaks off, it's like, is he going to be able to come back to what he was doing today? It just sucks that he had that 40-point game, and he's at the, like, it almost felt like he was at the height of his career. Like, this is a big moment for him, and he's making a statement to all the fans that are doubting him, that are saying he's not clutch in these moments, and he's doing that. And then for him to fall on no contact and get injured on that play, like, it sucks, man. But I'm hopeful for him, and I just want to say it. Maybe this is a way for non-Celtics fans to appreciate Jayson Tatum and what he's done for the NBA. He, no nonsense. He gets the job done. He, like I said, he plays majority of the games. He has more games played than some All-Stars that are a lot older, that have been in this league, right? So I just want to say for the fans, like, appreciate this guy, because as much as you can nitpick and say things about him, but he is a talent and he is a superstar, and he really, really, really is a player for just young fans and people in this league to look up to and model their game and how he acts on the court. So we got to show love for JT, and I think the Celtics can just find a way to kind of recuperate and bring it together and find a way to do it for him. And hopefully they can kind of muster up that strength and energy and use it towards something good.
Absolutely. Obviously, the Boston standpoint, you got a game 5 to play tonight. Take care of business, win at home, right? Still in the playoffs. I also want to say nobody deserves to go through anything like this in this league, especially a guy like Tatum. Andrew, you're so right. Just looking from the personal side of things, this is a guy that dedicates his craft. He promised the city of the Boston Celtics. He delivered in his promise. He gets at the pinnacle of his career. Seamus, like you were saying, it felt like this was Tatum's yet again masterpiece, right? His masterclass. Here he is on the road in a historic building, really tearing it up, and at what should have been the peak and the height of his career, really turned into the down part. And that is very unfortunate. As for a Tatum standpoint, what do I look like? What do I see from Tatum? I really do believe that Tatum will come back from this. He's a 27-year-old. He's very young. He's got the frame for it. He's an athletic body. That is kind of, if you look at the history of the Achilles tear, right? Kevin Durant is kind of like the best case scenario. And I hate to use that because I don't believe in that, but KD came back arguably better. It looked a little different for KD, but he came back better. And I believe Tatum kind of has a very Kevin Durant-esque type of game. So I'm not worried in Jayson Tatum not being able to come back to full strength. I believe that's a worry that's a question that won't be able to be answered for about a year and a half, right? We won't know for 2 years whether or not Jayson Tatum can come back from this. What I do know is he's got the body, he's got the athleticism, he's got the training staff around him, and he's got the skill set, right? And skill set, it really matters here when you're dealing with the Achilles, right? Very good in the mid-range, crafty offensive scorer, can get buckets in different ways, still a phenomenal playmaker. Will his defense maybe take a step back? Potentially. There's some aspects to it. Again, these are questions you can ask, but you really are, it's just speculation. The Celtics standpoint, this is where we get interesting too. What does this imply for the Celtics? And I made a list here, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. And obviously we'll get back on Tatum, but this whole podcast, but like I made a list, and it's broken down into 3 categories. The Celtics, and I hate to do this with a game 5 tonight, but I'm sorry, you have to. It's broken down to 3 categories. It's their must-dos this offseason. There should probably do's this offseason. And they're risky but frisky, which is shaking things up a little bit. And the main goal here, the main overarching goal I have on this list is to build a competitive team that takes the jump once Tatum comes back post-surgery. That's the goal in my eyes. That's what Boston needs to do. If they want, how do they handle this situation? Build a frisky team next year, right? That's led by Jaylen Brown and that can compete, maybe be a 4 seed, and, maybe exceed expectations like that. When Kyrie and Hayward went down, that team still managed to lock up the 2 seed. Build a team like that. How does that happen? All right, here we go. Let's get started on this list. First and foremost on the must-dos, and I'll let you guys address the must-dos first. I'm coming out hot here. Fire Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla has run his course in Boston. The second one, move off of Sam Hauser. He's been irrelevant all year. He has not been the player he once was. Seamus, you mentioned it. Luxury tax. You really got to stay under it at this point.
And
move off.
Classic example too. His contract does not align with his value on court. Anytime you have a bigger contract than the value, it's like, yep,
it's like you get time to move off of you. Exactly. Next one. There's 4 here. Number 3, move off of Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is a phenomenal player. When you're looking in a win now window, you're going to be able to get some fluff to your roster and potential draft picks from a competitive team like the Lakers or the Warriors, who are kind of in this win now like delusional state. The last one is acquire an athletic, true backup wing. This team is in dire need of that. It's shown this postseason. With Tatum down, you need an athletic, true backup wing. Guys, let me hear it on my must-dos. What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you think?
Well, I think moving forward for the Celtics, I think you have the right idea. I think the best way to move is to compete next year, because no matter where you sit right now for the Celtics, you have a talented enough roster next year to be something. Like, you're not going to be down in the doldrums of the league where you're going to be competing in the lottery or competing for a play. I mean, you could compete for a play in next year for the Celtics if the East turns out to be that good. But right now, the East is just rough next year. I mean, seriously, if Giannis leaves the East as well, I mean, the East is no Tatum, no Giannis at the top. I mean, those were the 2 superstars carrying the East essentially this season. And obviously, you have Mitchell and Brunson and Towns, but I don't feel like they're up to that level of Tatum and Giannis necessarily. But next year, you could map out a scenario where the Celtics, I mean, this is the luxury of the Boston Celtics, is next year Jaylen Brown is going to be the guy. And how many conversations have we had in the past about Jaylen Brown being the guy on another team without Jayson Tatum? And it's always nipped in the butt where we go, okay, well, Jaylen Brown, why are we talking about this? He's always going to have Jayson Tatum alongside of him. If those two are paired up, why do we need to have the Jaylen Brown conversation, the number 1 Jaylen Brown conversation, right? About him being the guy. Well, now that conversation, it owns a lot of validity and it has a lot of points to it now that we're going to see come to fruition next year with this Celtics team, because Jaylen Brown, this is the luxury of the Celtics, is you have one superstar go down. You do have another superstar there in Jaylen Brown to take over the reins and take over the offense next year and take over that number 1 spot in the rotation as the guy, as the superstar of the Boston Celtics. And not only him, but you have Derek White on the roster, who's, I mean, come on, he's still going to be a very good player next year. He's only 30 years old. Now, Drew and KP, as for them, my issue with moving them is, where are we going to move them for what? Because I'm noticing there are a lot of teams who are coming up with the same conclusions about larger contracted players. This player KP expiring 30 million. I think KP would be easier to move than Holiday because of Holiday's length of his deal. I think people are going to be less interested in a Holiday than a KP, considering KP's deal is expiring next year. You could make a case that once you trade KP, I mean, you could trade him to a team like the Hornets or the Hawks or the Pistons, somebody with salary cap, and they could just eat his contract in that way. But the problem is if you have other teams trading larger contracts out there, the market for where Kristaps and Drew can actually fit in, and you think about all the new CBA rules of teams over the second apron, they can't aggregate players. That's going to be a tough thing. It could be tough. It could be a little tougher than we think when it comes to moving guys like KP, Drew, or even Sam Hauser this summer. Sam Hauser is probably the most movable because of the size of his contract and what he does on the floor. But even him, we're talking about him, like all these guys, Holiday, Porzingis, and Hauser. Those are the 3 I'm really looking at as, okay, we're probably going to move off two of those guys, at least one of those guys, probably 2, maybe even 3, all 3 of them. But it's just going to be hard to actually trade each and every one of those players, considering we're kind of looking at him going, okay, KP, he's on an expiring. he was awful in the playoffs. I mean, the thing that kind of alleviates some concern with me when it comes to trading KP is, well, KP is a versatile big guy. He stretches the floor. He does deter shots. He's an okay rebounder. And it's not as if, okay, just because he played terrible in these playoffs, it's not as if another team isn't looking out there going, okay, we could definitely use KP. Like the Lakers in the playoffs this year could definitely have used KP in the playoffs. So there are other teams who are going to need a big like KP out there. But again, he's on an expiring contract, just played terribly in the playoffs. Holiday, he has multiple years left on his deal. I mean, we just gave him an extension, but that's the deal where I look at it and go, that could be a hard contract to trade because I understand people might want Drew Holiday, but he's coming off a series where he just got absolutely cooked by Jalen Brunson and he looked his age, and he's coming off a season where he more increasingly looked his age 34, 35, and then his contract, 4 years, $134 million left on his deal. So that's a pretty big deal for Drew Holiday. 30 million this year. 32.4 next year, 34.8 the year after when Tatum's supposed to be coming back, and then 37.2 a player option 3 seasons from now for Drew Holiday. And I just 37 it almost looks like a Kemba Walker contract where you're going, ooh, 37 million in that 4th year. I'm not really sure he's going to be producing up to an all-star level 3 seasons from now at $37.8 million per. So that's going to be a hard contract to move. And then Hauser, I think he's going to be an easier contract, obviously, because the $10 million there, aside from the say $30 million of KP and Giroux. But Sam Hauser, for as great of a shooter as he is, we know his limitations on the floor. And from that standpoint, I think it's probably, teams aren't going to be just leaping to get the $10 million Sam Hauser contract. And you could find a scenario where the Celtics are simply selling all these players and not getting much of anything back, which could be a devastating blow to this team, period. Which makes the challenge this summer for Brad Stevens and the Celtics ownership in tandem just impossible. Like I wrote it down. It's an impossible challenge to figure out exactly what to do. In other years, there have been obvious moves. Obviously, last year was probably one of the more obvious off seasons in terms of just, okay, we're bringing everybody back. Like we're not letting go of anybody. We're bringing everybody back. We're signing Tillman. We're signing out. Like we're bringing everybody back. This season, there's no right answer. It's the Celtics could sell to a point where they look like a lesser team next year, and they could be a 5 seed, a 6 seed. They could sell and get some real frisky pieces back. They could be savvy in that way, and they could actually put together like you were saying, Rob, a potential team that explodes and is ready to compete once Tatum comes back. But even just looking at that alone, Tatum coming back, it's not guaranteed he's going to be the guy coming back. It's not guaranteed that Jayson Tatum's going to be the same coming back. And another element of this is Jaylen Brown, if he's not traded in the offseason, and I'll mention this, the 3 safest names on the roster, Peyton Pritchard for sure. That $6 million, they're just so valuable in terms of his contract and what he brings to the floor. Derek White, the youngest of the bunch, or one of the younger players of the bunch, that the starting 5, and his deal is pretty manageable for what his worth is. And then Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, you could see him moved. You could, but I feel like his cultural impact to the city of Boston, plus the fact Tatum just goes out of the lineup. You have another superstar in play. I mean, this is why we have superstars. Like
Exactly.
this is why the Celtics have Jaylen Brown. Is Jayson Tatum goes down. Obviously, you want to see those guys on court together. But if one goes down, hey, the other's going to step up. And this is kind of a moment right now that the Celtics can really utilize Jaylen Brown. So I think Pritchard, Brown, and White, they're probably the 3 safest names on the roster. Everybody else is completely expendable, including, Cornette, Horford. They're going to be free agents this offseason. We're going to have to see what happens with them. But Jaylen Brown is going to be the guy next year. And it's not guaranteed that Jaylen Brown, say he has an awesome season next year, say he has an MVP caliber season where we're going, whoa, this is what it looks like when Jaylen Brown is the guy. And this is what it looks like after Jaylen Brown just went through an entire offseason where he's just motivated knowing he's going to be the guy, and how awful of a playoff run he just had, which we're in the midst of right now and which we're seeing. You could see a world where Jaylen Brown comes out, plays phenomenally next year, and is the number 1 guy of the Celtics. And then Jayson Tatum comes back. How does Jayson Tatum slot in? Remember back when Gordon Hayward injured his leg, that was such a wonky situation because Gordon Hayward goes out of the starting lineup. First game of the season, all of a sudden Tatum and Brown, they're both thrown into the starting lineup for the rest of the year. And then when Tatum came back, obviously you had Marcus Morris there, Terry Rozier, Kyrie was coming back. Morris, Rozier, Tatum, and Brown, they did a lot of ball handling in the 2018 NBA playoffs. They did a lot of scoring. There was a lot of usage for those four players. And then inserting Kyrie and specifically Hayward back into the equation, it just was awkward. It was like, okay, Morris, he was super efficient for us last year. And Tatum and Brown, they were efficient for us in the playoffs. They all played tremendous defense. And then Hayward comes back and he has the status, he has the contract, but his play is not up to par with those others. And so we're force feeding Hayward constantly, but in reality, Marcus Morris deserves the spot. Jayson Tatum deserves the spot. Jaylen Brown deserves the spot. Instead, we're going, well, because of Hayward's status and because of his contract on the team, we got to force feed this man. Same thing could happen with Tatum. He comes back. Maybe he's not quite the same player, but then we're going, okay, well, he was the guy beforehand, but then the guy last season was actually Jaylen Brown. And so Tatum coming back into the equation after a year, I do have concerns and questions about that. Obviously, Tatum and Brown have played together now for, 8 seasons. They should be able to reintegrate eventually, but I do have some questions about if Jaylen Brown's the guy for the entire year. How is that going to look with Jayson Tatum coming back? And especially if Jayson Tatum isn't 100% coming back, is he just thrown the usage right away? Is he ramped up? Does Jayson Tatum become more of the Jaylen Brown type of player in the future and Jaylen Brown becomes the guy? These possibilities are out there, and that's why this is just an impossible offseason to navigate it if you're the Celtics, because you're in a selling state. The ownership is not going to want to pay an astronomical luxury tax bill, including the repeater tax, in a year where Jayson Tatum is simply not playing. It's like Giannis or Jokic not playing for the Nuggets or Bucks. And the ownership in the front office, they're in a position to sell, but they're also in a position to be somewhat competitive next year in a weak East and also competitive the year afterwards. So it's going to be this balance of how do we sell off but also stay frisky at the same time. And I don't see a world like there's the best case scenario of the Celtics. They somehow sell off, get back great pieces, and they have a great team next year and they actually make it as far in the playoffs. That's on the table. But there's also a scenario next year where the Celtics come out, they sell, their roster just isn't as good, and maybe the season does fall apart and we find ourselves in a Philadelphia 76ers type of situation next year where we're hoping for ping pong balls in the 2026 lottery. We have no idea, but this is just an impossible offseason for the Celtics ownership, Brad Stevens, just the front office in general to navigate because there's so many factors coming into play next season. Especially, this roster was so easy last year. Just bring everybody back, pay the tax. We're running it back. We just won the championship, and now, we're at this precipice of this era is, to me. I don't know how many games we have left in this series, but we're going to see some changes this summer, and they could be. I think they're going to be major, major changes, and this Tatum injury is certainly. It's going to have an effect on all of it, and it's already. We already know it's going to have an effect on this Celtics franchise heading into the future in a very, very profound way. However, to see whether or not that's actually negative or positive, obviously it's negative from the standpoint of Tatum's going to miss a whole season, but as far as the front office navigating the roster the next year, it's still to be foreseen whether that's negative or positive, some of the profound changes on the horizon. You muted,
I think
Andrew?
you're muted.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was muted. Yeah.
There it
Once
is.
again, this is a tough.
I was like, it might just be me.
Yeah, no, this is a tough situation to be in. Like Seamus said, it's you could go both. You could go both ways. Jaylen Brown is a capable guy. We don't know exactly what his potential is playing on his own without Tatum, but I don't see why he can't take that leap up so that he allows us to be competitive. But then you also have this kind of need to, get below the cap and deal some guys that potentially, we're spending too much on. I think Hauser, like you guys already mentioned, Hauser is a great guy. We appreciate everything he's done for this squad, and he helped us win that championship. But he's a guy that, it sounds wrong, but like we have Shireman on the bench. Like we have guys that can kind of fill his role. Like he's more of a guy that you can replace compared to other players, right? So I think for Hauser, it's like we said, that value, it's tough to really like keep him and pay that, knowing there's other guys that can fill that role. You talked about Mazzulla. I think that's an interesting discussion, and I was just
Gotta go. He has to go.
No, I'm done. I'm done with Mazzulla. This is 2 out of 3 playoff runs where it's just been egregious.
Yeah, I agree.
In the height of the Tatum and Brown era, it's like you don't play around with these things. Windows are short.
No, you can't play around with it anymore, and I agree. And I think down the stretch, like we just can't figure it out, at least this year. And because our margin of error was shorter, like last year, yeah, we won down the stretch, but it felt like there was more.
I'm going now on Joe. Baby.
Yeah.
I got things.
And also just think about next year too. It's like, it's a whole different team. It's going to be a whole different vibe. Like Joe Mazzulla fits whatever we had that year. You know what I mean? He fits maybe, but it's time to kind of fresh, because we're going to be moving into a different period of the Celtics. And it's like, Tatum's going to be coming back. There needs to be a different way to attack it. And also just the way the NBA is shifting right now, Knicks are attacking us with a double big lineup. We're going away from that analytical era, and we're going more into just how can we beat teams and how can we be physical teams. And it just feels like there's a shift, and Joe Mazzulla just doesn't.
But
he's very
can I
in his
hop in here? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Joe Mazzulla in the analytics, that doesn't exist. Joe Mazzulla isn't this analytic mastermind, right? It really isn't. And it's so funny because Joe Mazzulla's like concept and this and that, right, is, we're going to shoot a lot of threes, right? Because threes give you more values than twos. And if they're good open looks, the analytics suggest that that's a good shot, right? Well, the truth of the matter is with the Boston Celtics, right, is their whole game plan, right? Joe Mazzulla's scheme, and it's in air quotes because it's not a scheme, is find the mismatch, right? Generate the offense to that mismatch, lead to an open three, right? Well, the truth is that what makes that work is the Celtics' talented playmakers, not Joe Mazzulla's scheme, right?
Right.
Joe Mazzulla doesn't have this mastermind scheme that is allowing his players to get open. It is putting Jaylen Brown in a great situation to succeed and putting Jayson Tatum in a good. No, what the Celtics players have accomplished have been solely and purely based off of the talent that is on the court. Everything is based off of, this is just a really talented team. This is a terribly coached basketball team. Quite frankly, it is terribly coached. And Seamus, Andrew, you guys both said it. These are the heights of Brown and Tatum's career. Obviously, we're taking a turn with Tatum, but you don't play around with this. And I'm sorry, but Joe Mazzulla is that bad. He is so bad. And last year, Boston, in every big moment, it wasn't the coaching. It wasn't an adjustment. It was a player making a play. It was Drew Holiday getting a bump steal. It was Jaylen Brown knocking down a tough shot in the corner that was contested to go into overtime in game 1. It was Tatum taking care of business. It was not a mastermind scheme of Joe Mazzulla. And the truth is, with that championship run, it was a relatively easy path. The Celtics handled it phenomenally and took care of their business, but they never really faced this juggernaut of a team or a coach or anything. And what we saw this postseason in every single game, Joe Mazzulla has truly just been outclassed. In every of the 9 games we have played, he has been outclassed. In this New York series, there has been not a single.
You have to adapt. You have to adapt. Like the whole NBA knows exactly what you're trying to do. You just won a championship. And you're coming into the season acting like the NBA doesn't know what you want to do. They have it on the whiteboard all across, like written all over, and they're guarding you to stop you, and you don't make adjustments off of that. That shows your coaching. That is true.
The one example I have on this was in 2023. I got something in my mouth. I apologize. I don't know what that. In 2023, Joe Mazzulla came to Boston, and the whole timeout thing was happening, right? And he was young, and then I'm talking late game timeouts, right?
Right.
And it was like, okay, he's young, right? This is a young coach. He doesn't have experience. This is okay. I'm talking late game, taking the ball from out of bounds, going 94 feet down the court and trying to make something happen, right? He did that. We are still seeing this problem 3 years later, a problem in which the Celtics have not once looked good in that situation. Boston has never once, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum have never once been able to succeed coming down the court 94 feet down by 1, needing a bucket to win the game. It has never, ever, ever worked. Why are we still doing it? Why? Is it Joe's inability to drop a play? Does he not trust himself? What is it exactly? Oh, we like the matchups out. No, it's become unexcusable. Joe Mazzulla, just flat out, plain and simple, is a bad NBA coach. He has had success and he's won games around the situation he is in. But the truth is, he's a coach that players like to have in the locker room. He's an extremely likable guy. He's a little crazy. He gets the fan bases behind him, right? He has these crazy quotes that makes him look crazy and all this, right? And he might be a likable guy. But the truth is that Joe Mazzulla is not suitable to be the head coach of a franchise as prestigious as the Boston Celtics. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Joe Mazzulla cannot hold that standard. Joe Mazzulla should not, in my opinion, completely threw away 2 of the Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown years. Obviously, this ruptured Achilles tendon, it sucks. But the truth is, guys, if we're going to be 100% honest here, we weren't getting out of the series. Tatum healthy or not, we were not getting out of the series. And we were in a position where a turnover led to a bucket that put the Knicks up by 9. There was 3 minutes left. Tatum was the only one generating offense. And my last point here, which is why Joe Mazzulla has failed us, is Jaylen Brown obviously is a little banged up, right? And he's a little hurt and he's playing a little recklessly. That happens. I look at that and I understand Jaylen Brown is trying to get some offense going. Every intention he has is good. Joe Mazzulla, you need to draw up a play to put Jaylen Brown under the basket with the ball in his hands on a smaller guy. Something off ball. Something. We've seen none of that. We have seen Joe Mazzulla fail to put Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown in easy scoring opportunities late game, early game, mid game. It has been putrid. I'm sorry. That is highlighted in bold on my must-dos. If you don't fire Joe Mazzulla, then I really, really think that the Celtics, I don't even know, because he has been that bad. Their chances moving forward in their integrity, in my eyes, is out the window. It has been so ugly. Joe needs to go. I'm sorry.
No.
It's a done. Over it.
I mean, you're right about not getting Brown like an opportunity, because he obviously he's working too hard on the shots. The offense is stagnant when they get in that isolation and they're trying to attack the mismatches. So Brown's dribbling into 2 guys, right? Then he's turning it over. How do we give more spacing for Brown to actually produce, and how do we play into his strong suits rather than kind of let him kind of go all over?
I mean, it's getting pathetic. It has passed the point. I mean, you're watching it and you're thinking, year 1, it was okay, this is fine. And I've said this, but we're in year 3, Joe. You're supposed to be the coach that has championship DNA, and you have simply looked like a high school basketball coach out there. I mean,
can you guys hear me, first of all? Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Griffin just called me here, so I was like, I don't know. All the microphone's always messed up. But no, right now, this would be the perfect moment to move on from Joe Mazzulla, because I don't see another transition period in the future if Tatum comes back in 26, 27 and the Celtics are actually good, where you could justify moving on from Joe Mazzulla. You wouldn't move on from Joe Mazzulla in the midst of a competitive era. To me right now, if you're the Celtics, we're going into a step back period. We're going into a period of transition. Every Celtics team, if you really want to dive into the history, usually about 2-3 years of an iteration, and then they move on. I mean, the Caires Celtics, it was 7-18 or 17-18, 18-19. Kyrie moves on. Then you have the Hayward and the post Kyrie era, and it's the keys are. You have the Kemba era. That's the Kemba era. That's 1920, 2021. And then you have the Smart era, the Smart and Robert Williams era. That's 22 and 23. And then you have the KP and Drew era, which is now 24 and 25 here. So you have these different eras and iterations of the Celtics over time, and they typically last about 2 years. Well, this iteration, it was the first year was last year. They won a championship. The second year was this year. They didn't win a championship, and we think they're not going to win a championship at this point in time. But going into the transition period the Celtics are going into with Jayson Tatum inevitably hurt for an entire season, this would be the perfect moment to move on from Joe Mazzulla, because there are going to be so many changes. I mean, this roster, I don't think KP and Giroux could be back next season. Hauser could be gone. You could have completely new pieces. Jaylen Brown is going to be the guy. Jayson Tatum is not going to be on the roster. On one hand, you could say this is a good experimenting year to figure out how good Joe Mazzulla actually is, because let's face it, the last 3 years, Joe Mazzulla was working with the most talented roster in the NBA all 3 years. I mean, even in 23, the Celtics were up there in terms of the title odds and the title favorites. So the last 3 seasons, Joe Mazzulla is working with a championship level roster and actually won the championship in a year where, Rob, you mentioned it. I'm sorry, I posted on Instagram during the run. This is a cakewalk. During the second round, we were facing the Cavs. I'm going, this is a cakewalk. We have Miami round one, the Cleveland round two without Donovan Mitchell, and then round three, the Pacers, who we didn't expect to be there whatsoever, and then you have the Mavericks in the final. It was a complete cakewalk. But now you could say, okay, well, Joe Mazzulla, bringing him back next season, maybe you experiment with him to actually figure out whether or not he's worth a shit as a head coach who's coaching a roster that's not talented enough to win the title, a roster that's just middle of the pack in the league most likely next year for the Celtics, and to see where that roster goes and where Joe Mazzulla can take that roster. That could be something the Celtics could experiment with next season. However, I also think this is the right moment to maybe move on from Joe Mazzulla, because I've already mentioned it here, and you mentioned it, Rob. The
Have to.
this is a Joe Mazzulla is younger than Al Horford. Joe Mazzulla is the youngest head coach in the league. And I know Franco has a point of, oh, don't get rid of him because he's the youngest head coach. But that's also a point of why you
Other way.
maybe should get rid of him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
he is
totally
right now you're playing with fire. You only have so many years of Brown and Tatum. And we just saw game 4 at MSG how fragile those years are. I mean, we just lost in game 4 a year of Tatum. Just straight up, just that end of game 4, but boom, year of Tatum out the door. So these years are not guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed that in 2 seasons from now, this Tatum Brown duo is going to operate and work the same as it
right.
did in this series. And maybe we don't even want to say this series, because this series the returns were just awful. But this season and last season and any season beforehand, we don't know if Tatum's going to return to the same player, and we don't know if that duo of Brown and Tatum are actually going to work. I mean, from that standpoint, I feel like this is a good transition period for the Celtics to potentially move on from Joe Mazzulla, because Tatum and Brown, you don't know how many years you have left with those guys. And if you're just playing around with your food, if you're the Celtics, which has been just the saying with the C's all year long in terms of their play, and now we're going to bring it up in terms of the offseason and the moves. But if you play
Right.
with your food and you play with fire, I mean, you're going to get burned. If you
And
keep Joe Mazzulla in that spot, you don't. I mean, to me, he was hoisted into the position via circumstance. It was, oh, Ime
right.
Udoka can't keep his dick in his pants behind the scenes, and now Joe Mazzulla, he's in the lineup. I mean, he used to be second row Joe, and now all of a sudden he's the head coach. So to me, it's not as if
And
Joe Mazzulla was out there like they're like searching they're scouring head coaching candidates and getting the best guy for Tatum and Brown. They did that with Ime. They literally did that with Ime. They spent a bunch of money on Ime, and then the next year it's just, oh, I guess Joe Mazzulla, we'll hoist him into the position, and then everybody treats him like bigger than basketball. Go Joe. Come on, Joe.
right.
Let's
It,
go. And
it,
it's like, okay, can the guy do the job or not? I don't want this green teamer nonsense.
yes.
We
Yes.
clearly see
Thank you.
in these series, he's outmatched. And even last year, it's like game two's at home. Last year, we're like, oh, it was such a cakewalk. We lost game 2 to Miami at home. Lost game 2 to Cleveland at home. We almost lost game 1 to Indiana at home if Jaylen Brown doesn't come up with a miracle shot. And even to close out the finals, I understand the Mavericks gave us quite a punching game 4, but you're on the road to close out the finals. They can't do it there. Great, they won game 5. But even last year and the year before, obviously, we have the Miami the game 5 against Atlanta. You have game 1 and 5 against Philadelphia. You have games 1 and 2 against Miami. And then this year, you have games 1 and 2 against New York. The Orlando series looks off the entire time. And you just see time and time again, Joe Mazzulla, he hasn't actually coached a full quality playoff series. There's always a bump in the road where we're going, what, how do we, and it's not even one of those bumps that are explainable, right? Like if we win the first 2 games in this series, right, and then drop game 3 at MSG, it's like, okay, you dropped game 3 after you won the first. You drop a road game 3, that's understandable. You drop a road game 4, that's understandable. Okay, like the finals game 4, it's like that's pretty understandable. But to lose games 1, 2, 5, 7 at home the way the Celtics have done in the last 3 seasons, it really along with just the film in general, it really shows the lack of adjustment Joe Mazzulla admits to the game and to the Celtics, and it also shows just the lack of game plan. I know this season we've talked about it many times, but just the execution in the late portions of games. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was looking at this Knicks series. Obviously, before Game 4, we're thinking, okay, this could be tied up best of 3. We could still very much win the series. But looking ahead, looking at Indiana, I'm going, I don't know if we can take down Indiana. Rick
Right.
Carlisle and their entire squad is healthy compared to, and they faced us last year in a playoff series. Like, I don't know if we could beat Indiana right now with how we're playing. And just this series, I think, has brought out some of the worst qualities of the Celtics. And it's unbelievable because of some of the good habits the team formed last year, only to see them come crashing down to the earth this year in the most crucial moments in the NBA playoffs, in the semifinals against our rivals, the New York Knicks, the whole season we're like, oh, we're going to take down the Knicks. We're going to take down the Knicks. And then, it's just embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. It's embarrassing, even amidst Tatum's 42-point performance. It's like, people are blaming others like, oh, no, nobody's doing anything else. But to me, it's like Tatum is the offensive initiator. He initiates offense for everybody else. So if others aren't involved, it's because we don't have the game plan to properly get them involved, and we don't have the action right now to properly get them involved.
Seamus?
And it was sidestep, step back. It was hero ball the whole time. And it's like, how do we not have a head coach that goes, stop this nonsense?
And I'm not saying
stop this,
but he's also working so hard to get every basket. It's like, who knows, man?
And you know what?
He's overexerting himself. It's like, who knows? Maybe he got injured because of that. You never know.
He probably did. He had 42 points, 28 shots, and he's playing the most phenomenal defense of his entire career.
Right. It's like, yeah.
And you know what? Seamus, you've said it so many times this show. You bring back those old Celtics teams, right? 2018 is the prime example, right? Brad Stevens was the definition of just a basketball mind, X's and O's, right? Didn't matter who he had out on the floor. Every game looked a little bit different because, quite frankly, every game is different. He would roll with Joe Mazzulla, right? You put, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. You put probably 29 of these or 28 of these NBA coaches on this team. They probably won the championship last year, right? And they probably, quite frankly, the team might look even a little better because Joe Mazzulla does not have the intangibles to be an X's and O's coach. He's relied strictly on talent. What made Brad Stevens and those Celtics teams really, really good was they were so well coached X's and O's. They knew where to attack. They knew how to attack it. They knew how to generate really easy buckets. Each player was being put in the position to succeed, which is the coach's job. How, as me as the coach, can I put my players in the position to succeed? Whether or not the players succeed in those positions, well, that's up to them. But if I put them in the best position to succeed, they're going to be really great, right? There's some exceptions to this rule. Jayson Tatum, Giannis, Nikola Jokic, right? They kind of create their own positions to succeed. However, for the other guys, right? Jaylen Brown would be another example of this. Even still, though, sometimes Brown needs to be put in those stars still need to be put in those situations, right? But moving forward, the truth is, Joe's not going to have the talented roster anymore, right? He's not going to have this uber powerhouse, which is just, I'm going to barrel you and beat you with talent. Doesn't have that anymore. That's out the window. So what the Celtics need to look at is really reflect, right? Watch the games. If you watch these games, it's not coaching. There is no coaching, right? There is straight up offensive scheme. There is no coaching. It's high pick and roll, attack a mismatch, have the playmaking ability of Tatum, of Brown, of White, of Holiday, get open and get into the lane. The defenses collapse, kick out. Let's hope we make the three. Like straight up, that is literally the Celtics for the past 3 years has been that. And if you think that's going to work next year with the potential move of Holiday, of Porzingis, of who knows, right? This talented roster, once this season, is going to look a whole lot less talented with the spacing, with what you can do with the ball in your hand. Mazzulla is not capable of coaching a team like that. In no world. He does not have the intangibles. He does not have the scheme. He does not have the ability to coach this team. And Seamus, that to me, what you mentioned with bringing up Brad Stevens and what made those teams good, right? That's the whole thing. Use that, Brad. You know it. Brad Stevens has to know it, right?
I know, it's like Brad can't be just that much of a green teamer on wanting to support Joe Mazzulla. I mean, he's cutthroat. I mean, we've seen it. He's cutthroat. He's like, Kemba's not producing. All right, bring back Horford. Like, get Kemba out of here.
Like, yes. it's like, at what point, and you make such another phenomenal point. Like, I'm sorry, my last point here on Joe, this was my last one, and I'll be done with the Joe Mazzulla rant. But like, why do we coddle him? Why? Right? Why is, and I get it, he's my coach, the fan in me. I'm going to support him. I'm going to support the guy always. But you got to be realistic here, right? And there is now 3 years of film, 3 years in which if you watch it, you're just like, okay, this guy clearly isn't suited for the job. Like plain and simple. Like plain and simple. Seamus, you alluded to it. He got thrown into a position due to some crazy circumstances, and he's had success, but the team, it's been the catalyst. Joe hasn't been the catalyst for it, and that's just the truth. And I look at the future of the Celtics. If I'm Brad Stevens, my main goal here is when Jayson Tatum gets back, be ready for him. You don't know if Tatum's going to be ready, right? But be ready for him. Have the team, have a younger team, have a more athletic team, have a different look of a team, right? And what belongs with that is a coach that is going to help Jayson Tatum, when coming back from injury, be put in a position to succeed. I don't trust Joe to coach Jayson Tatum when he comes back from this injury. I don't. I think Tatum needs a different coach. I think Brown, he needs a different coach. I think Joe he delivered a championship, but I'm sorry. It's done. It's over, out the door. That's enough.
You also have to think about it too. Tatum, we don't know how he's going to come back, right, from that injury. So he's not going to be able to do it possibly all by himself. Like, he's not going to be able to attack.
You need a coach. Yes.
Like, you need a way to actually attack him and put him in those positions, because who knows what he's going to be capable of come that first game. So you got to be able to get him to his spots and let him hit fadeaways or get in the post and layups and just kind of make his life easier, because it's going to be a transition coming back.
You need a more creative head coach for Tatum coming back, because like you were saying, Andrew, it's like you need to put him in positions to succeed coming back, and it can't just be the same thing, the same static action every single time down the floor. I think just some points with Joe Mazzulla here that clearly show me that he is not the guy. Now, great, he won a championship with the club, but I just don't see him in that upper echelon of head coaches. And yes, he's in his 30s, so maybe we shouldn't hold him to that standard. But then again, it's like, hello, this is a $6 billion NBA team. Maybe we should be holding some standard to that head coaching position. Like, maybe we should. Like, again, like, why do we coddle him? It makes no sense. But just some of the points I look at from this season. So the off-ball action is just horrendous for the Celtics. I don't know how many times we've seen down the stretch of games the offense become completely stagnant, and we have 4 guys looking at either Tatum or Brown simply dribbling with their mismatch at the top of the key. Just no complex off-ball action.
Help side just waiting there.
Yeah, no cutting, no movement, no manipulation, no manipulation of the defense to move them to one side or the other to actually get what we want. Tatum does. I mean, that's the thing about Tatum, is he was so phenomenal at doing that himself this season, but he wasn't doing that during the playoffs. And Joe Mazzulla, we clearly didn't see a scheme out of Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff that was able to get Tatum or Brown those looks furthermore than what they were able to create for themselves just in the regular season setting. In the playoffs, it completely changes when you're strategizing against a team potentially 7 times in a row. They're gonna take away that action from Brown and Tatum a lot more. With like the Knicks this series, the Knicks have been just they put on a masterclass defensive performance this series, and part of it is the Celtics not making the Knicks defense work and shooting themselves in the foot. But otherwise, I mean, the Knicks have been phenomenal at helping this series and shading over different actions. And Joe Mazzulla, he's talking about some of the pre-switches and how the New York Knicks, they almost, in terms of offense, defense, if you're on the offensive end, you want to be manipulating the defense. This series, I very much believe the Knicks defense has manipulated the Celtics offense, which is just a travesty to look at compared to what happened in the regular season. But I look at the off-ball action. That's a huge concern and problem with Joe Mazzulla. The creativity on the offensive end of the floor is just not there at all. It's high pick and roll every single time down the floor. Oddly enough, when he went down, the Celtics were running a different play on the offensive end of the floor. They were finally going to something different at that point, but then it resulted in, of course, Tatum tearing his Achilles. But regardless, Tatum was getting the ball on that possession anyway, and it could have turned into the exact same dribble at the top of the key and hoist up a shot. But I look at other points to Joe Mazzulla and why he's just not that upper echelon of head coaches. the superstars' decision making in crunch time and just the execution of the team in crunch time. The execution in crunch time this season has been utterly horrendous. And in any moment we see the Celtics need to pull out a game, we're actually thinking the opposite of what we should be thinking as Celtics observers. Normally in the past, again, like with Brad Stevens' teams, we're thinking, oh, the Celtics, it's a close game down the stretch. We were feeling as the Knicks feel right now. The Knicks fan base and the Knicks observers feel right now, oh, if this game is within 10 in the fourth quarter, the Knicks are going to pull out this game because of how good they are down the stretch and in crunch time. They have their crunch time guy in Jalen Brunson, and they just execute on both ends of the floor. The execution this season has been utterly awful from the Celtics. And last season, they never really needed to do it. I mean, they did it a couple times in the NBA playoffs. There was that game 4 in Cleveland. There was that game 1 against Indiana. There was game 3 and 4 against Indiana. In the finals, you had game 3 against Dallas. You had to execute down the stretch. There are some examples last year. Sure, there are going to be some examples in the bunch, but the overarching theme of the Celtics with Joe Mazzulla is once they get into crunch time, the decision making and the execution is just putrid. It's awful. It's horrendous. And that definitely reflects back on the head coach. When you have superstars like Tatum and Brown making the decisions they're making, I mean, some of the hoisted shots, some of the shot selection out on the floor, it's amazing to see it say in game 3, the Celtics offense work the way it does, and the Celtics get the attempts they're getting in game 3 versus what the crunch time of game 4 looks like, and even the second half of game 4, where the Celtics, they're all standing around and we're watching Tatum and Brown go one-on-one the whole time. It's like how are we letting our superstars make those decisions time and time again? I don't understand how Brown and Tatum, that goes through their minds, but I also don't understand how Joe Mazzulla doesn't put a stop to it. I don't understand with Sam Cassell sitting there on the bench how he doesn't put a stop to it. I don't know how he doesn't sit those guys down and go, look, we have to come up with something different here than what we're doing, because we're doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. And I know our guy Ian Inangelo on here has been on here before saying, look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's what we just see in these crunch time moments is the Celtics lack of execution, both on the defensive and offensive end of the floor, and just the awful, horrendous decision making that we're accustomed to now seeing out of our superstars and mostly Brown and Tatum. And that again reflects back on the head coach. But some other points here. I think the motivation of the team this season. I mean, they came out all motivated with fire in their bellies because we want to go back to back. People doubted us over the summer, call their championship run cheap, and Tatum in the Olympics, Brown gets snubbed off the Olympic roster, and yada yada. They come out with some fire. But really, the regular season, this team handled themselves like, oh, we're champions. We don't really need to come out every night. It's the
There was an
motivation.
arrogance to them.
How much motivation can a head coach muster out of the locker room in January, in February? I don't think Joe Mazzulla did a good job at that at all this year. And in January and February, I mean, even now at the press conferences, like, does Joe Mazzulla, I'm sure at the press conferences, that's not how he is behind the scenes. We've already detailed that. But is this guy, does he have life in his body? Does he actually have the motivating factor behind himself to actually bring life into his team? Right. I just didn't think that we saw the best come out of Joe Mazzulla in that regard this season, because we saw the team just not motivated for half of the year. And then in the playoffs, it feels like it's just gone completely the other way. I mean, it feels like we're playing like a scared basketball team versus the Knicks, who are just, they have all the confidence in the world. But this last point here, and I think it just symbolizes the lack of creativity by Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics coaching staff. Xavier Tillman. Xavier Tillman this season hardly played at all. Last year, he was a part of the Celtics playoff run. He was a part of the Celtics run in the second portion of the season last year after the Celtics traded away Lamar Stevens and a fake second-round pick in order to get Tillman. Tillman was supposed to be our potential Al Horford replacement out there, and his three-point percentage didn't really suggest that he was going to be a full Al Horford replacement, but you could see, the post work, the defense with Tillman, maybe you could hit some corner threes, maybe you could bring that shot. Al Horford's shot right now versus what it looked like, say, 15 years ago, completely different. You could ultimately see Tillman develop in that regard, and you do have bigs like KP and Al Horford next to him, and even Cornette and Queta, and he could develop alongside those guys. Well, this season we barely saw Tillman at all. At all. I mean, he was a garbage time player, if that. There would be some garbage time games where Tillman wouldn't even get in the game. It was confusing. And to me, goes back on Joe Mazzulla and his ability to utilize Tillman in the lineup. Well, he just looked at Tillman and went, well, this big guy can't shoot. He shoots 25% from three. Well, we can't play him. It's like, how is that possible? I mean, Luke Cornett is a big capable of shooting a three ball, but he didn't take any threes this year. He hardly took any threes. We saw Luke Cornett be a rim running big, a putback big, a rebounding big, offensively, defensively. Why couldn't Tillman be the same? Why couldn't we utilize Tillman in the ways in which we thought he was going to be utilized, both coming into this season and when he joined the Celtics organization? This season with Tillman, how does Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff not find a way to utilize him at any point in the year? At any point. And just because his three-point shooting isn't up to par, we're just not going to play him. I mean, that to me embodies some of the lack of creativity coming from the Celtics coaching staff right now, and the lack of versatility the Celtics. I shouldn't say versatility on their roster, but just in terms of the versatility the coaching staff is willing to go to, right? Because we're talking about the Brad Stevens point. The Brad Stevens teams, it would be, Shimi Ojale is starting a game 7. We're throwing Romeo Langford in here. Brad Wanamaker's making an impact. Tristan Thompson. It would be all these different guys who randomly would come in, play spot minutes here or there, and then make a big impact on a game situationally. We didn't see a lot of situational basketball out of Joe Mazzulla this year. It was all the same ring around nonsense that sometimes worked. I mean, worked for 61 games, 61 wins this season, but it was the same thing every single night. And even you look at a stretch in January, where the team for a 25 game sample size was 14-11. During that stretch, we were saying, what is going on? Why the Celtics cannot find answers out on the basketball floor in terms of consistency. They cannot find answers for consistency. Yet Joe Mazzulla, he's not even touching Tillman. He's not even touching Shireman. He's not even touching Walsh at that point in time. Craig wasn't on the roster, but wasn't even playing those guys at that point in time. And it made no sense. It made absolutely no sense knowing, okay, the 7-8 man rotation we roll out every single night, they don't have the fire. They don't have the consistency right now. They don't have the ability to make shots. They don't have the ability to execute because their motivation is low. Why don't we bring in some guys like Shireman, like Walsh, like a JD Davison at any point in time, and actually give them some run, and maybe they make an impact on this roster. Maybe they bring some consistency. Maybe they bring some fire. We never saw that out of Joe Mazzulla this year. And there are just so many points here as to I hate to say it, like there have been moments where it's like, okay, I'm Team Joe. Like you have to support him here. Coming into the position, I said, okay, Ime's fall is going to be Joe's rise. And of course, Joe wins a championship a year and a half later. But I've never been a fully gung-ho all in on Joe Mazzulla at all at any point in time. I've been highly skeptical. And now we have a lot of data that suggests to me this could be the moment that the Celtics move on from Joe Mazzulla, because you can't play around with this stuff. You really can't. With Brown and Tatum, you don't have a guaranteed amount of years with them, and there's no guarantee they even come back together again. They might have played their last game together. Brown has moved on from. That's just highly speculative. I don't believe that's going to happen. But if Brown has moved on, they could have played their last games together. They might not operate as the same duo. You have no idea how many years you have left with Brown and Tatum. You cannot be sitting here and fooling around with Joe Mazzulla.
Right.
I will say the other side of that, though, I could see a world where the Celtics go, well, the only guy to integrate Tatum and Brown back into play together would be Mazzulla because he's coached them for the last 3 years. I could see something like that going on, but otherwise, I mean, Brad Stevens, you said it right. Brad Stevens has to see this. He has to. He's a smart man. He has to see it.
If I see it, Brad should see it. And it's like you teach a fish, right? You try to teach a fish to climb a tree. It's going to think it's dumb. It's going to live its whole life think it's a dumb fish. No, you're not a dumb fish, right? You just can't climb the tree. You're a fish. What can a fish do? It can swim. So we should have the fish swim. That's like Joe Mazzulla coaching. You look at a guy like Tillman, he's a fish, and he's trying to teach him to climb a tree. It's like, he can't climb the tree, Joe. Use him put him in water, let him swim. And it's putrid. It's bad. I mean, again, it's funny. This episode kind of turned into Joe Mazzulla slander episode. But quite frankly, I had it on my notes. I kind of wanted that to happen because he has been so bad. And when you talk about the future of the Celtics, especially surrounding Jayson Tatum, that is, in my opinion, the biggest area of need. So, we had to talk about it here in this episode, guys. But again, thank you for joining us in another episode, another show. Really unfortunate circumstances moving forward with the Boston Celtics. I hate to say it, from a perspective of an analyst, it's going to be a really fun offseason. It's not there yet, right? We still have a game 5 to play, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be some stuff we haven't had to talk about, some conversations we haven't had to have for quite a while now. And there's no better spot to be than Celtics Talk Weekly to have you guys for that.
I want to add this on. Jayson Tatum, I believe he will undoubtedly be calling Kevin Durant, and has already reached out to Kevin Durant, because those two guys, I know they've spoken in the past. Durant goes down in the 2019 NBA Finals with an Achilles tear. Rob, you mentioned it. That's kind of the best example, or the best case scenario, of guys coming back from Achilles tears. But we just don't. I will say this. I have this in my notes. Not many examples of superstars in the modern era at the height of where Tatum was.
Exactly.
Not too many superstars have torn their Achilles while at that height, while in the midst of their prime like that. Kobe and KD, they were a little bit older. Clay, he had the ACL and the Achilles, so that's not necessarily, you can't necessarily judge there. Cousins and John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall, they are kind of the comparison of, they're in the midst of their primes and they tear their Achilles. But both of those guys are just completely different styles from Tatum. I mean, John Wall was quick, explosive guard. I think tearing your Achilles as a guard is probably the worst thing. I mean, even bigs, forwards, guards, I think guards, they suffer the most from the.
If he's a big, like DeMarcus was a big, like he
right.
Like,
DeMarcus was like a real, like, you look at him, he was just, I mean, I don't want to say chunky, but it's like he was a hefty. I mean, husky. That would be the right word. I mean, he's just a very bulky player. But yeah, Cousins and Wall, different styles of play. Wall, obviously, I mean, he was such an explosive player, but once you tear that Achilles, that explosion, that ability to blow by guys went away. That's my question with Tatum: is explosiveness, athleticism, burst, physicality, verticality. Will it all be the same? We have no idea. I mean, that's a huge part of Tatum's game. Will Tatum rely more on his jump shot, more so than getting downhill, getting to the rim in the future? That could be a thing. Can Jayson Tatum even be the guy coming back? Can he return to his peak? And the question, unfortunately, goes from what else can Tatum do this season? It was like, what else can he do? He does everything. To can he do that again? Unfortunately. Right. And that's just catastrophic in the peak of his prime right now. He's ascending further into his prime at age 27. And instead now he's going to be rehabbing an Achilles injury all of age 27 and probably a good majority of age 28, trying to come back into play. So that's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how fast the narrative and conversation changes in the NBA. Fortunes change extremely quickly, as we saw at the lottery. Like that night, that was a memorable moment in NBA history. The Dallas Mavericks, they move on from Luka. They get Cooper Flag in the lottery. And then, of course, the Celtics, you see Jayson Tatum go out of the lineup. I also want to mention this, too. Is this Jayson Tatum's last game with Al Horford? What does Al Horford retire now, knowing the Celtics are not going to compete for the championship next season? That all of a sudden comes into play. And just my general question at the end of all this: how long before the Celtics are contenders again? Because we were thinking this year back to back 2025 after 2024, but now is it 2027? Is it 2028? Is it if it's not those 2 years with Brown and Tatum, is it beyond the Brown and Tatum era? And then that opens Pandora's box up to, are we rebuilding for another 3 years after that, 5 years after that? I mean, it could be another decade before the Celtics are contenders again. I mean, knock on wood, it's not, but you never know with these kind of situations and injuries. I mean, just Jayson Tatum, he's coming back 2 seasons from now. I mean, that's October 2026. That's a long way. That's a long ways away. I'm sure when we get to that date, it's going to be like, man, all that time passed. Oh, that was quick. But at this point in May of 2025, October of 2026 just seems very, very long, a long ways away. And that's when Jayson Tatum, he'll be coming back in the lineup. And how the Celtics look at that point in time: will Horford still be here? Will Mazzulla still be here? Will Jaylen Brown still be here? Who else will be around? I mean, it's the future of the Celtics. It all changed in that game 4. It's amazing. In the fourth quarter, we went from 2-2 series tied, best of 3. We could certainly win this series, certainly still win the title. To when are we going to be contenders again? When are we going to? We have no idea. I mean, that's the lasting question from all this. When will the Boston Celtics be contenders again?
Hey,
When
man,
will it happen?
Exactly.
be grateful for what you guys have. That's just a lesson from the entire
Yes.
thing.
Yes, the whole league took Jayson Tatum for granted. Everybody hating on Tatum, hating on Tatum, hating on Tatum. Maybe they should have just enjoyed Jayson Tatum for what he brought, because guess what? Ain't nobody going to be able to hate next season when he's off the floor.
Exactly.
So,
You guys are gonna be lost.
unfortunately, don't take these superstars for
I also
granted.
want to
They're
say
all
too,
awesome.
it's like
I mean,
Tatum too. It's like, hey man, who knows?
Respect.
But maybe there's a possibility. He works. He finds another level. I mean, he has to work.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Play a different game of
yeah.
He has to play a different game of basketball, and maybe he finds a little post game that he gets to. Maybe he can, find different ways to attack defense. Like there's always a potential. So stay positive out there.
I'll believe it when I see it. When that he won't come back better, right? I'll believe
Tatum
it when I see it.
He's a basketball junkie too. Like
He
this
loves it.
to me, I think this is. I mean, it's going to be devastating for anybody, but for himself, like I'm just gutted for Tatum, knowing he's worked time and time again on his craft in the game of basketball. I mean, since he was in elementary school, before that point, and just every single year since he can remember, basically, Jayson Tatum has worked on the game of basketball. Now he's going to go through an entire year in the midst of his basketball prime where he's just going to be rehabbing an injury. Like that is just gutting to me, knowing he cannot do what he loves to do. He can't do what he loves to do. He loves to play basketball. He's a basketball junkie, and now that's taken away from him for an entire year for the first time, basically in his entire life. I mean, it's a shell-shocking event for not only the Celtics fan base, the Celtics organization, but also just Jayson Tatum. I mean, I feel for that guy. I mean, prayers out to Jayson Tatum people say speedy recovery, but let's face it.
Yeah.
To me, I think he's going to miss all of next year. Jayson Tatum, take as much time as you need and come back 100% healthy. Celtics Nation is going to be behind you, and
just pray
all
for
the
a good
same,
one.
all the same. Just 100%. The respect.
Well, guys, again, well wishes to Tatum, prayers to Tatum. But there's a game 5 tonight, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. You never know. Maybe the team
It'd be
around
the most
them.
embarrassing thing in the world if the Knicks were to blow a 3-1 lead.
Yeah, 3-1 lead, an hour in these.
That would be.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens. Thank you again, guys, for watching in. Again, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that now. We're gonna have you covered for all off season and an interesting off season. So again, guys, from me, Robbie, from Seamus, from Andrew, from all of us over here, Celtics Talk Weekly. As always, guys, go Celtics. And until next time, we'll see you.